Welcome back to another World Cup fantasy video ahead of Matchday 3. I activated the wildcard before Matchday 2 and I'll be providing a review of how that's gone so far and then looking ahead to what I'm going to do using unlimited transfers, bringing out locked players who have already played in Matchday 2 and bringing in new ones, the ones I want ahead of Matchday 3. I explained this in the best wildcard team video for Matchday 3 and also in recent videos, including the how to play guide, which was the first World Cup fantasy video I made on this channel. So hopefully that's all going to be clear. If you have any questions, then leave them down in the comment section below. I'll try to provide a brief explanation of everything as well, again, because there's always so many questions regarding this game, and I'll talk about how I'm expected to line up heading into Matchday 3, but of course there can be changes. I'm going to see how the rest of the Matchday 2 games go, and then I'll be finalizing my team, and you'll see it in the deadline stream tomorrow. If you end up enjoying this video and finding it informative or entertaining, then be sure to drop it a like. We're trying to get this to over 300 and we're also looking to push on towards 20,000 subscribers. But let's talk about the wildcard. If you activate it before Matchday 2, you still have unlimited transfers right now. And what you can do is get rid of locked players, as I said earlier in this video, those that have played already, and you can start to bring in the players you want ahead of Matchday 3. But one thing you need to know is that once you make a transfer involving a locked player, it doesn't matter if you're on the wildcard or using free transfers, you will not be able to change the player you just brought in. So once you bring in a certain player, let's say Richarlison for Matchday 3, that is settled and you can't change it. So be aware of that. You have to make sure you have a kind of solid base and you're completely convinced about the team you want to wildcard into in Matchday 3. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where you might end up with players you don't end up wanting in Matchday 3. The deadline for making unlimited transfers before Matchday 3 begins, so you can set your team up for Matchday 3 as well as Matchday 2 with that wildcard you activated already. The deadline will be the end of the Portugal versus Uruguay game, but the reason why I said to do this beforehand is because you may want some Uruguay players such as Rochette. If you don't have him in Matchday 2 and you wait for the Uruguay game to start and then you try to bring him in, you won't be able to. So try to make these changes beforehand because Uruguay and Portugal have good fixtures in Matchday 3. You might want the Uruguay goalkeeper, maybe Cancelo, Bruno Fernandes, and a few other players from these two nations. So be aware of that. But in terms of the deadline for all of the other players and to complete your wildcard free team using the wildcard in Matchday 2, that will be the end of the Portugal versus Uruguay game. So there's a clear distinction there. If you still are unsure, then let me know down in the comment section below. And there's always going to be different questions. Some people have been reporting issues of basically having points deducted even if they have the wildcard active. I haven't experienced that myself yet, and I think the vast majority of people haven't, but it has been an issue, so be aware of it. There's a lot of bugs in this game, and the substitutions, as I talked about in recent videos and streams, you can only make 4 substitutions during a week, so make sure to organize your bench properly and have those that are playing later in the week on your bench, and make sure that everyone playing on the first day in particular is in your starting 11 so you're able to make manual substitutions. In terms of the captaincy, as always, because I still get some questions here, you are only able to change your captaincy once when your original captaincy choice is played. So let's say you go for Mbappe against Tunisia, once he plays, you're able to change it once more and you will lose obviously Mbappe's captaincy points as a result, and you can move to Messi or anyone else of your choice, but you can only change the captaincy once after that, and you only have one captain by the end of the match day. Another commonly asked question before we get into the Matchday 2 team performance and review is about when can I activate boosters, including the wildcard, especially ahead of Matchday 3 if I haven't already. So you're not able to use or activate any of these boosters / chips during a matchday when it's in progress, but you can do it after the final game of a certain matchday or game week and before the actual deadline, so the first game of the next matchday. Hopefully that makes sense. In this case, it would be after the Uruguay versus Portugal match. That's when you're able to activate the wildcard or the 12th man or the power captain, and your deadline will be that window between then, the end of the Portugal versus Uruguay game, and before the next match in the World Cup, which will be the first game of Matchday 3. So hopefully that makes sense, and that will obviously be the Group A games, Ecuador versus Senegal and Netherlands versus Qatar. Hopefully that's very clear, and I think the wildcard in Matchday 3 could be very beneficial, and if I didn't use the wildcard already in Matchday 2, I definitely would be looking to use it in Matchday 3. You can check out my recent videos where I talk about my chip strategy and what my current plans are with the chips remaining for me. But now let's go into the Matchday 2 team performance, and then we can move ahead to my plans in terms of the unlimited transfers for Matchday 3. The goalkeepers have been a disaster for me in Matchday 2. I brought on Gonda for Damen. Both of them blanked, and in the case of Gonda, he made a big mistake for Costa Rica's goal. Their only shot on target in the entire tournament, and Costa Rica scored and ended up winning against Japan. And honestly, Japan bottled it in that game. They were poor, they were lackluster, and Costa Rica defended well. Obviously a great response after losing 7-0, but Gonda dived at the wrong time, and that's what enabled Fuller to score for Costa Rica. And I have to say, both of these goalkeepers I had were in the early kickoffs. I ended up kind of waking up a bit late on those days, so that was actually costly. I was looking to maybe make a transfer elsewhere and find the funds to upgrade one of my goalkeepers to Allison, for example, who I also wouldn't mind having in Matchday 3. But in the end, I didn't do that, and my goalkeepers were costly. Another one I was considering was Noppert, but I got rid of him just before the Netherlands versus Ecuador game kicked off because I had a feeling Ecuador would score, and in the end, Ecuador deserved the win, if anything. So in terms of the goalkeepers, a lot of them blanked throughout the match day with a lot of these nations, but it was still frustrating. And one of the goalkeepers I had in Matchday 1, Emi Martinez, kept a clean sheet against Mexico, but I just didn't want to jinx Argentina, to be honest, and 5.5 million seemed excessive, especially for a team that just lost to Saudi Arabia. But Gonda was my goalkeeper in the end, and he only got a 1-pointer. Only one return so far amongst my defenders, and that was from Luke Shaw, who kept a clean sheet in a 0-0 draw against USA. And England defended well, but they still conceded some big chances. And in my opinion, USA deserved the victory. And with better quality up front and that cutting edge, they would have won the game. But England are in a good position. If they face the likes of Netherlands or Ecuador, they could struggle in the round of 16. But England have the team to go far. But I'm not so sure. The manager obviously always kind of leaves these doubts. He's been England's most successful manager in a very long time, and he's done a good job, but very pragmatic, and England should be dominating or at least playing better than the USA in games like that. But honestly, it was kind of an entertaining 0-0 draw in a way, but England still leave a lot to be desired, and I think with that quality, they should be one of the very best contenders for this World Cup, and I'm not so sure if that will be the case. But moving on to the other defenders, this was very disappointing for me. Borna Sosa didn't keep the clean sheet. He conceded in the first minute, and that was the quickest goal of this World Cup. Alphonso Davies scoring Canada's first ever World Cup goal, but Croatia ended up winning a convincing win in the end. They turned it around, and for me, Croatia, as I predicted before the tournament, will top the group, but Morocco are also looking very strong, and it will be between those two, I think, to qualify. At this moment in time, I think Belgium will be eliminated. Let's wait and see what happens there. But Borna Sosa is still a really good cheap option. And then looking at one player who hasn't played yet, that is Alexandro, who's going to face Switzerland, who looked decent against Cameroon, although they were a bit fortunate maybe to get the win in the end. But Switzerland is the only team in this group, I think, that could maybe get a result against Brazil. But I still expect Brazil to get the victory. And to be honest, if there's any players I want to jinx because my team has been woeful so far, it would be the Brazilian players. But of course, you know, Brazil are a great team and they probably will do a really good job. Perhaps get another clean sheet and also score a few goals. Even with Neymar's absence, he was reported to miss the rest of the group stages, but I think the ankle is less swollen now, so that's good news there for Brazil. And the final defender that you can see here, well, maybe let's wait and see what's going to happen. But Denzel Dumfries has been very disappointing. In Matchday 1, he kept the clean sheet. He's had a few moments offensively, but nowhere near the same levels as what we saw in the group stages of Euro 2020 fantasy football. Netherlands have only conceded one big chance so far in this tournament. The only nation to concede fewer is Argentina with 0. But the Netherlands is still a good nation, a good defence. They've got a very good unbeaten record of Louis van Gaal, but they still haven't been fully convincing. Against Qatar, though, things can look much better, as we'll talk about later in this video. After 15 points in Matchday 1, it didn't surprise me to see Saka blank in Matchday 2. I still thought he was England's kind of best attacker on paper for this matchday, and I thought England would score goals against USA, even if they dropped points. In the end, it was a goalless draw. Saka had a few moments and created some chances, but in the end, he was lacklustre, and so were the other forwards for England. And like I said, Shaw and Maguire were the best performers for them, Pulisic for the USA, and they also had a few other good performers there. But Saka, still a good option in Matchday 3. Let's see how Southgate approaches that game. Will he play Foden? And if so, will he bench Sterling or Saka? Is he going to rest some key players like Harry Kane? That's going to be the key question. But Saka's still a good option, I think, against Wales, who looked very poor against Iran. And then next up is Dusan Tadic, who at the time of this recording actually provided an assist and also got a key pass point as Serbia turned it around at the end of the first half with 2 goals within 2 minutes. But I'm not sure what's going to happen in the second half. Of course, I'll find out after recording this video. And when this video is uploaded, we will all know how Serbia did and if Tadic ended up scoring a good amount of points, more than 4. but I originally had Ivan Perisic instead of Tadic. Perisic got 2 assists and a key pass point, so he got 8 overall. So it's very disappointing to see, obviously, Perisic do so well, assisting Kramaric both times. But Perisic is really good in international tournaments. I discussed this before, and he was always my preference over Luka Modric, despite Modric obviously being one of the best midfielders in the world and players. But Perisic, in terms of goals and assists, is better for Croatia, especially in World Cups. Modric, I think, only has 2 goals and 1 assist. But that was Tadic. Let's see if he can get more than 4 points. I'm hoping for that. And moving on to the other midfielders, Kevin De Bruyne, probably the biggest disappointment, and I'm not going to touch any Belgian players from now on. There seems to be no unity in the dressing room. There's kind of shots fired between different players. They have no confidence in their team, and honestly, like I said earlier, I would not be surprised if Belgium were knocked out in the group stages. The last player in my midfield, and I'm still waiting for a return amongst my midfielders, is Kamada. He was another one that disappointed in that game against Costa Rica. I thought Japan would score 2 or 3 and perhaps keep a clean sheet. Well, I was wrong, and Japan let me down big time. Kamada's a really good player. I've seen him before for club, and also whenever I watch Japan, he's very impressive. But once again, very disappointing here, and Japan just let us down. And it's very surprising to see some quality players like Mitoma, Tomiyasu on the bench. I think with Tomiyasu, I do understand because he has been struggling with injuries. But the others, I mean, Japan have some really good players on the bench, and if they had started, maybe they would have won the game there against Costa Rica and also eliminated Germany already from the group stages. But those were my midfielders. I'm still waiting for that return, apart from Dusan Tadic, who finally provided something. Hopefully he can get a goal as I'm speaking right now, and then we can also celebrate some more points because I desperately am in need of it. Other than Dusan Tadic's second half performance and Alexandro, Richarlison's the only player I have left. He's facing a tough Switzerland side who can beat the likes of Brazil and France. They did it last year against France. They got a draw against Brazil in the last World Cup, but I still think Brazil will get it over the line, score a few goals, and also potentially not concede. They rarely concede under Tite. Their average kind of scoreline over the last 6 years is 2-0. They've only lost 5 games in 6 years, so imagine that. And most of the losses have come to Argentina, one of them against Belgium, and honestly, Brazil just rarely lose matches, and they are one of the best teams in the world and probably the favourites right now for the World Cup. But once again, Richarlison, great performances for Brazil recently. A fantastic goal against Serbia. Obviously was in the right place in the right time for the first one as well. So Richarlison, I think, is a great choice at 7.5 million, and he could be a great option in the knockout stages as well. I'm very convinced that Brazil will go really far in this tournament, and despite how good Switzerland are, I think Brazil will get the job done. But the other player, I mean, what more can we say about this guy at this point? Lionel Messi turned up once again for Argentina, his 93rd goal for them and his 13th of this calendar year, which is an all-time record for himself personally, and he's already got an international trophy this year as well as last year. I mean, what more can we say about Messi? He's just one of the best of all time, if not the best for me, and a 9-pointer. He's the only one for me, and I'll talk about this very soon, who always delivers when he's my captain, because the likes of Neymar and Kane are players I've also captained. They've blanked in match days 1 and 2, but Messi in both occasions has delivered, and hopefully once again he can do it against Poland. This game is completely different to UCL Fantasy, for example, in terms of the captaincy, where I'm more adventurous, and even if a player has 9 points as my captain, I would still consider changing it because you have a captain on every single day within a match day. In World Cup Fantasy, it's different. You can only change the captaincy once. It's hard to get points in general. The points are bugged. So honestly, a 9 points from Messi is a godsend, and even with 6 or 7 points, I don't think I'm ever changing the captaincy once again. And the main reason I did in match day 1, to be honest, was mainly to jinx, if I'm being completely transparent. But I've got 31 points at the moment, not including Tadic, Alexandra or Richarlison, and I think the rank is bugged. It's probably going to be around 400 to 500,000 in the world. So that means even with a wild card, I've had probably the worst match day of any fantasy game ever. And, you know, some really good picks, some solid kind of fixtures, and just not that many points in general. And I got a massive red arrow, to say the least. But in terms of what I see on the website, it says I'm around 250,000 in the world. I wish that was the case, but I have a feeling it won't be. Obviously, you'll see the updated ranks and all of that in the deadline stream. And that was my Matchday 2 performance. Now let me show you how I'm lining up right now ahead of Matchday 3 using unlimited transfers with the wildcard I already activated before Matchday 2. I'm going to back the Netherlands quite extensively here and go for Noppert, a 4.5 million goalkeeper. Netherlands still haven't sealed qualification. They've still got Senegal and Ecuador to fend off, but they're facing Qatar. I think they are able to make a few changes and still win the game quite comprehensively and possibly keep a clean sheet. Qatar haven't really offered much going forward. They did score against Senegal in the last 20 minutes or so of that game, but they created nothing against Ecuador, and I think that will be the case again against the Netherlands. But you just never know in football, and also in this World Cup in particular. I think Noppert is a great choice choice if you're looking for a 4.5 million goalkeeper, perhaps the very best option. And I think Alisson is probably the best overall, but there's still a few doubts about him. If Brazil win against Switzerland, they could rotate and put Edison there. So I would keep it simple and go for Noppert and a few other budget goalkeepers that I'll show you later on when I go to the bench. I don't think we've seen the best of Denmark in this World Cup, but they are going to face Australia. And despite Australia being in a good position right now and Denmark are on the cusp of actually being eliminated already, I still think Denmark are the favourites for this game and they could keep a clean sheet. So you could go for 2 Denmark defenders. I would probably stick to 1. I'm not that convinced about a clean sheet against Australia, but they have a good chance. Mæhle is still very good going forwards and he's got a great record for Denmark since the Euros and also during the Euros last year. So he's a great option if you're looking for a 4.5 million defender. Look no further. I think he'll finally deliver just like he did in Matchday 1. The other one is Jordi Alba, who's got 3 assists, I believe, in 2 games and also 2 clean sheets. Technically, he came off just before Germany scored, but I don't think that the game will end up counting these points that were accumulated before a player was subbed off. So if a team concedes, even if the player was subbed off, they're not going to have the clean sheet. They're going to lose it. So I think that's the way it's going to go. But Spain will probably still go strong against Japan, and I think Spain will win this game comprehensively, and it will probably be Spain and Germany going through. But once again, it's very difficult to predict, especially in this World Cup, and Jordi Alba is definitely worth 6 million. And then moving on to the other 2 defenders I have in the starting 11, I've gone for Luke Shaw right now against Wales, but I'm actually a bit concerned about this because Wales have been very poor, especially in Matchday 2 against Iran, but I think they will turn up against England. Nothing to lose really on paper. They have to win this game, so maybe Wales could cause an upset. I think England will get the job done and win, but it would not completely surprise me if Wales scored a goal. That's why I wouldn't be that convinced about doubling up on Shaw and Trippier. And honestly, Shaw might not even start the game, so this is kind of a risky pick. And you could maybe go for Theo Hernandez if you back him to start and we see the lineups, for example. And also one other thing which I covered already in the best wildcard team video is about the transfers after using the wildcard in Matchday 2. So if you activate the wildcard before Matchday 2 like myself, you have unlimited transfers throughout the week. We've explained all of this, but you also get free transfers to use during Matchday 3, and I believe these become available after the final Matchday 2 game, which is Portugal versus Uruguay, which is why I'm talking about using your unlimited transfers to set up for Matchday 3 before that game begins, if possible, if you want some Portugal-Uruguay players, but definitely do it before the end of that game, and then you get those free transfers, which you mainly want to use to get rid of players who aren't going to start. You see the lineups, then you can get rid of someone, for example, maybe Theo Hernandez doesn't start, you get rid of him and you can bring in someone who plays later on in the week. So be aware of that. Use your free transfers that you get after using the wild card heading into Matchday 2. You can use those to also deal rotation in Matchday 3. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any more questions, let me know down in the comment section below. And the final defender that you can see in the starting 11 will be Denzel Dumfries, who has been disappointing, but against Qatar, I would heavily back the Netherlands for a clean sheet, and that's why I've gone for Noppert and Denzel Dumfries. And there's still quite a lot of good options from other nations, but I would still go for a double up here if possible. Despite being benched in Matchday 2 against France, I believe Skov Olsen will come back into the side. He's only 6 million and he was Denmark's top scorer in the World Cup qualifiers, and we haven't seen the best of Denmark. I think they have much more to offer, especially offensively. They need to settle on a forward line, and I think Skov Olsen forms part of their best team. So I would expect them to start against Australia, and I think Denmark will get the result, and if so, they could go very far in this tournament potentially. But Skov Olsen at 6 million is still a bit of a doubt for me. Looking forwards though, Dani Olmo has been really good in this tournament. He's going to face Japan, and I think Spain will get the victory here and play a strong lineup to secure first position. So Dani Olmo is in my side. He's one of my favourite 8 million midfielders right now. And in terms of the Spanish attackers, he's probably the best one in my opinion. He is nailed on for 90 minutes pretty much all the time. And not only that, he also has the best international record in terms of goals and assists compared to Gavi, Pedri, Marco Asensio, Ferran Torres, and a few others of these kind of Spain strikers. So I would go for Dani Olmo instead of all these wingers, midfielders, and strikers that I've talked about. He is a good option at 8 million, probably my favourite. Then he'll be closely followed by Asensio. Then we have Bruno Fernandes. He could be changed, but he's facing South Korea. He looked really good in Matchday 1. Let's see how he performs against Uruguay, who I would expect to put up quite a tough resistance against Portugal. But even if that's the case, I still would fancy Bruno Fernandes in Matchday 3, and he could even be a great captaincy option, to be honest. So if I were to go for any Portugal attacker, I believe it would be Bruno Fernandes, even over the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo. And finally, we have Angel Di Maria, who set up Messi for the opener against Mexico. And Di Maria has a great record for Argentina over the last year or so. And against Poland, which is a must-win game, I think he's a good way of covering Argentina's attack. Of course, you'd rather have Messi, and you could go for both of them even. But Poland haven't conceded a single goal and they're the only team to do so. Szczesny with 2 clean sheets, and he's been great, especially against Saudi Arabia. But Argentina have to win, and I think if they step up and show their normal level, Argentina should get the win and also get a few goals. But of course, you never know in football, like I said, and Poland have looked much better in this World Cup compared to recent tournaments as well. Now let's show you the forwards before going on to the bench, the captaincy, and all the rest of this squad. I have some difficult decisions to make in terms of the midfielders and attackers, but Kylian Mbappe, if he starts, I think is the best captaincy option against Tunisia, and I would probably have him over any other premium forward if that was the case. He's going to be eyeing up that golden boot, which he's currently sharing with Enner Valencia, and against Tunisia, despite their great record recently defensively, I would still fancy Kylian Mbappe there to get a few goals potentially, and he could be in for another double-digit haul. So Kylian Mbappe speaks for himself, and he was my 12th man in Matchday 1. The last forward that you can see here is Gakpo, who scored 2 goals in 2 games, including a stunner against Ecuador, and he's facing Qatar next. And I personally think it will be Gakpo and Depay starting up front, but there is possibilities for rotation, and Gakpo could get a rest. And like I mentioned earlier, I believe Netherlands could rotate the likes of Gakpo and a few other key players and still get the job done. So it could be Bergwijn or Janssen being up front with Depay, who has been confirmed to start and get 90 minutes by Louis van Gaal last week. He said he would get 45 minutes against Ecuador and then the full 90 against Qatar as he's looking to build up his fitness again. So Depay could be another great option around 8.5 million. You still can't ignore Giroud, Richarlison, Lionel Messi, and you've got a few other key options really between different price points. I think those are great choices. Even Enner Valencia if he's fit against Senegal, but I would be very happy with this forward line. It should come as no surprise that Kylian Mbappe would be my first captain, and I think that would be the job done really. If Mbappe doesn't start, I could easily switch him to Messi or another premium forward of my choice, so I don't think that would be a big issue. In terms of my bench, I would have Rochette, a 4 million goalkeeper who's going to face Ghana. Uruguay didn't concede a single shot on target against South Korea. Of course, once again, we'll see how they do against Portugal, but Rochette at 4 million is a great choice, and I believe his record is 2 goals conceded in 9 matches under Diego Alonso, and Uruguay are always very solid defensively, even in their worst years. Then you can see the rest of my bench. Richarlison facing Cameroon, especially if Brazil drop points against Switzerland. I think this could be an even better pick in Matchday 3 against Cameroon, and at the time of this recording, Serbia actually ended up drawing 3-3 with Cameroon. I think Tadic ended up getting 5 points. He got 4 key passes and the assist. So not too shabby in the end, not maybe ideal, but Richarlison should be good against Cameroon if he starts. That would be the main concern though. It could be Gabriel Jesus coming in for Brazil there. And then I've got İlkay Gündoğan against Costa Rica. I would try to have 1 or 2 Germany players if possible. Now, one update I want to provide you with my final player is Raum, who actually suffered a bruised rib against Spain. Now, the German Federation are optimistic he'll be fit ahead of the Costa Rica game, but there's still a bit of a doubt about him, so be aware of that. Raum could end up not starting because he's got a bruised rib that he sustained against Spain, so that is going to be a potential issue, but I think Raum is a good choice at 4.5 million, one of the most offensive fullbacks at that price for sure. Bruno Fernandes would be my second captain, I think, with this squad and setup if I end up not having a captaincy return from Kylian Mbappe, or whichever premium I switch him to, depending on if Mbappe starts or not. I think Mbappe will start. He's going to chase the golden boot, and I think he could get a few goals there against Tunisia. But if it all goes badly there, I could switch the captaincy to Bruno Fernandes or Richarlison. I think that is what I'm looking to do at the moment in terms of the captaincy. But let me show you some alternatives because I'm not completely settled on this team, and I'm looking at some Morocco players, for example. They haven't conceded a single goal under their current manager, and like I said, they could probably go through to the next round, even over Belgium. They've been looking really good in this World Cup. I'm looking at 3 possible changes to this squad, and that is Agüero in for Jordi Alba, Ziyech in for Di Maria, and Messi in for Gakpo. The rest would stay exactly the same, but of course I'm keeping an eye out on potential injured players and also rotation, which I could use my free transfers to deal with later on when the Matchday 3 games are in progress and we see the lineups beforehand. And the captaincy would definitely lie between Messi and Mbappe if this was the case. They both play on the same day, and once the France game ends, I can then switch it to Messi if needed, but that is looking pretty good as well. Let me know if you prefer this squad with 2 Morocco players and Lionel Messi, or the other one with Jordi Alba, Di Maria and Cody Gakpo. I think it's quite tough actually, and that's definitely something I'm going to be thinking about until the Matchday 3 deadline, and of course you'll see it in the deadline stream as well. And honestly, let's just wait and see what this has in store for us. Hopefully everyone else is fully fit and available, and we see some very strong teams going into Matchday 3. But Matchday 2, as you saw, tour there was a disaster. I'm hoping for much better things in Matchday 3. And once again, there's some very solid picks, but you could maybe doubt a few of these like Skov Olsen and also the likes of Round because of his potential injury. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, and let's also push on towards 20,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also check the links in the description below for the Patreon, the channel membership, so you can get early access to videos and many more perks. And also be sure to check out the Discord server and the Wildcard Fantasy League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best luck for Matchday 3 and the rest of this tournament, and I'll see you next time.